Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my Stoic Circus, and I'm Jason B, aka 72 the Architect. And today we're going to talk about simple and small. That's right. Are you making simple choices and smaller choices that produce consistent outcomes? So we'll stay right tuned, and we'll be right back. All right, everybody. Good morning. What is it? August 12th. The summer's going by fast, and there are a lot of things going on in the world, or maybe with yourself. And as some of those transitions and things that are coming up, the obstacles, maybe problems, maybe you're not getting the results or the value out of your life, and you're wondering why? Why me? Why this? Why now? And I also am going through that personally, but we're not really going to talk so much about always what I'm just going through. And usually the lessons that I learn the best are through the most difficult situations to show me the simplest ways, right? The simplest ways to get from A to B may not be easy, but it definitely can be simple. And I think that the new part of my life that I've now come to accept is that not everything has an easy button and not everything has a clear path that it seems you got to do work, right? I know I've always had to do work, but in my path, I would have to say that I understood a lot of times before that I would get stuck, in situations, or I'd put myself in situations or bury myself in situations because I worked on an impulse. I didn't delay, didn't take time to think, right? And then I was like, okay, well, what gets things done? How can I chip away at the real situation? So a couple of questions that, that I really want to propose on the show is, first, what's the small step I can take towards a big thing today? Right. And it also led on to another critical question. Can I keep things simple and straightforward today? And I'm like, wow, two questions, 2 days, two different reflections. And there are quotes that go along with that, with each question. And both what I was reading came from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And the first one says, "Do now what nature demands of you. Get right to it. That's the power." Hold on 1 second. Okay. Sorry, the alarm comes up and I have to deal with it sometimes and I forget to shut it off. Anyhow, but he also says, don't look around to see if people will know about it. Don't wait the perfections of Plato's Republic, but be satisfied with even the smallest step forward and regard your outcome as a small thing. Hmm. And then the other quote that's to excuse me, I got backwards. Yeah, no, can I keep no, that quote I just read to you. Yeah, it goes, what's the small step? Okay, I sorry, I got a little lost. The second was, the question is, can I keep things simple today and straightforward? That's actually two different questions. Marcus goes on to say, don't tell yourself anything more than what is initially impressions report. It's been reported to you that someone is speaking badly about you. This is the report. The report wasn't that you've been harmed. I see that my son is sick, but now that his life is at risk, but not that his life is at risk, excuse me. So always stay within your first impressions and don't add to them in your head. And this way, nothing can happen to you. Whoa. So let's take in what really these questions mean to us. Like the first one, what's the smallest I can what's a small step I can take forward? A lot of us, we don't want to take small steps. We want to make, hey, like even big steps. Let me just get through the regiment. Let me get right to it. I don't want to waste time. I don't want to look at people. I don't want to deal with this thing. I don't want it to cost me more. I don't. And that's the premise. And even thinking about it now, as I'm saying it impromptu, I don't have a script right now. What I can tell you is simply this: the more I don'ts creates a rhythm. It's just that simple. I do, I will, I am changes the conversation. A lot of people, I've listened to many people talk about the laws of attraction, but it's simply more than a cosmic thing. It's really a mechanical mechanism. And I was listening to The Power of One More by Ed Milet. And he said something so profound in the first couple chapters. He said basically, what you really want is an identity that you can back. And what is that identity? I'm confident. I love myself. I am the personal I am. And what I say is what I do. And I don't want to second guess what I believe. But there lays the problem. Are you looking at your identity and what you do and how you involve yourself in things? And then it leads on to the question, what's the small step? Why do smaller steps can matter? In my opinion, those smaller steps lead to more consistent practices because our bodies and our minds and our soul, our spirit, they all work on that premise. And I've talked myself out of doing consistent smaller steps. I've talked myself out of doing hard work, and I've gotten the outcomes as a result. And then when I want things to be, I didn't have what's in the bank, right? I didn't have the experience, the knowledge. I knew what to do, but when it gets to knowing what to do and executing what to do are two different things. One leads to the other. They integrate themselves, they're intermixed. But when we look at what's being mixed, one complements the other. I understand and I know are two statements that we use very passively instead of just thinking, well, maybe if I just not say, let me confirm what I'm doing or what I'm thinking before it's an impression, right? Before it's just like an assumption. And I've got myself into plenty of times in trouble with exactly that. And even in the situation that I'm dealing with right now personally, I have learned several things I never thought about. I never realized, and maybe I should have, but that should have word I don't like to come out of my mouth, but it's like, okay, it's here, it's now. There's a reason to learn. And so I was talking to someone I deeply care about, and I said, I've built a track record of crumbs that don't lead to outcomes. And I can't ask you for another chance. And I cannot ask you for forgiveness because if I do, I'd be selfish. But what I can do is try to make momentum changes. And that will have to be my calling card. That will have to be, enough talk. There's no reason to play the game, to weave the web that leads us to nowhere. And at that moment, I understood the implications of the things that I did that led us to where we were at. And so I asked myself last night, and I was like, okay, well, instead of beating myself up, what can I do that when I wrote this question on a card yesterday, I wrote the quote and the question. I said, what's the smallest step that I can take towards a big thing today? And when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, the answer was just right there in front of me. And I'm like kicking myself, and and I took this long, verbose, very colorful journey instead of just do the work. And the people that I care about got hurt because I was arrogant and I was unwilling to read the signs of life and responsibilities. So then when I think about what Marcus said, he's all do now what nature demands of you. That was when I read it yesterday, I was thinking, well, what does that exactly mean? You know, get right to it. It means get right to the work that produces outcomes for your benefit and for others. It's just that simple. Don't wait for the right moment, is what he's really saying. The right moments come along with the progress of what you're doing. So if you're in that place of how to always do something, well, why? I mean, a lot of the motivational speakers out there, they constantly talk about, um, you know, get to your why and find your why. What's the reason for you to even be attempting it and doing it before you look at how? How is going to come along. How is an important question, but it should not be the primary question you should be asking yourself. And to my experience, and when you understand the trials and tribulations of things, if you get right to the point and saying, okay, if I put this work in, more than likely this result will come. And that means intentionality. I'm going to keep with my intentions. I'm going to work at my intentions to make this outcome more than likely a more of a percentage, but an assurance. And the hardest word that I can ever say is guarantee. And what are your guarantees? Well, under the simple part of the show, here's what I've learned. I guarantee to keep my word with myself. Now, the difficult one is I guarantee that I will keep my word to all those who engage with me. And I have not done that. And so it undermines the contract or the confidence that I build for myself, which means I am confident, I'm strong, I'm amazing, I'm a good person. But if I will keep my word is so important. And when we realize keeping your word is probably the most valuable thing, one of the most valuable things that you have in your toolkit. The the number one to me is your listening skills, you know, keeping your word, which begs upon, what you speak must be. And simply, and that goes on to, the other quote, how can I keep things simple? And when Marcus really said, he says, don't tell yourself anything more than what is initially an impressionable impressions report. And he gave the example, he kind of talked about, well, it's been reported your son is sick, but he's not dying. And yet you as a parent be like, oh, shoot, what's going on? I obviously have to do something about this. I have to actually do something about what's actually taking place. I have to take time off. Are they going to be okay? Am I going to be able to sleep tonight? There's all these things that a parent can go through when you get a report like that. Or let's just say, oh, someone's talking badly about you. What is the first initial thing that you want to do? You want to go and find out what the hell, what was somebody saying about me? Why are they saying? And automatically it is coming from a defense to an attack, and it does not do anyone justice. And I'm working on adopting this. What people say about me is none of my business, especially if it's bad. But that doesn't mean I get to ignore it. Take mine and watch. Let people reveal themselves and their intentions when they're talking bad, and it's same as when they're talking good about you. You cannot, but what is the primary focus? So, which led to I wrote these 3 questions to really keep me in check, and I got this from the book Limitless, by Jim Quick, and he says, "How can I use?" He asked, before you make any decision on anything, "How can I use this?" That's question number 1. Number 2 is, "Why must I use this?" And number 3, "When will I use this?" So all this information, like when someone talks bad about you and you feel like you need to adjudicate or address it, if it falls into those categories, what can I use with this information that's been provided to me? Okay, well, it shows me what obviously is going on. Is it true? It could be. You could be hiding something. You could be lying about something, and it comes out into fruition. Now, okay, now it's up to you to decide, all right, either face the music or continue to hide. And for a lot of my life, I hid a lot, lived in shadows. Why? And to answer you very carefully, I hid out of what in my mind was to survive. Sure, I could tell you the stories, dad wasn't there, mom screamed all the time, but it was very difficult coming up. I can tell you that. So I've had to recently, in the last 5 years, really relearn about my person. And what I learned is that it doesn't matter how you train yourself. If you don't change your conditions, then nothing's going to change. The same, like, it's like when people say, well, I hope for this situation to get better. I hope that, cross my fingers, things like that. Well, why does hope need to take place so much where to do the work? If you know the path to get to that place, then go and do it. And so as I'm reflecting and thinking about all these things and all the chain of events that have happened for me, not to me, this is my new, hey, face the music with positivity, love, make a beautiful choice. My beautiful choice says that I understand I can work for outcomes that will truly benefit me, having a great home, having my bills paid off, going enjoying experiences with my partner, you know, raising my child to have a curiosity perspective. These are experiences, and this is what we really need for investment. So to get to, like, even the topic of the show, simple and small. The small leads small consistently, like in James Clear's book in Atomic Habits, he literally says that small consistently leads to a belief, and more than likely it leads to the outcome of accomplishment, completion, being satisfied. And these are words and personas that are we're just taught against. And that should not be, in my opinion, it should not be. And I don't even want to use that, but it's the words I'm going to use right now. And so really, to get down to this, even looking at the quote that says, so always stay within your first impression and don't add to them in your head. That basically means don't add more sauce to the tacos or cheese. Don't add your illusions to the situation that doesn't need to be, like your insecurities. Maybe you're having a hard time in your relationship. Maybe you had to take space. Maybe you had to break up. And those racing thoughts, what do I need to do? I need to fix this. I need to pay more attention. I should have done this. I should have done that. And that doesn't mean squat. Honestly, it really doesn't mean squat, because at the end of the day, the outcomes that you have right now have been a slow process. So why don't you take and enjoy the same slow process for your benefit? How do you change your mind? How do you change your beliefs? And like I said, when I was listening to this book, The Power of One More by Ed Milet, and he says, in order to do that, you've got to change your identity, and your identity comes from your confidence. Your identity comes from what you do and not what you want. Identity comes from, the credits that you've built for yourself. And once you know your identity, then you know your purpose, then understand what you can work with, because it's not always about what you want. Our wants go on and on and on. But at the end of the day, the wants will conclude, and you need to write that down. I'm satisfied. I worked for something. What is my want that I really need? And I really got down and dirty with this one. And I said, you know what? My want is to get right with me. And no matter what I say that comes out of my mouth, it is an assurance, it is a guarantee that it will be honest, true, and trusted. And that leads to the next part. How you trust yourself as how you want to be, and how you want to be trusted, you are trusted with this. Your reputation is based on your actions, not the assumptions. And this world is built a lot of times on the pragmatism of assumptions. That means, what's out in social media? Let me get famous. Let me do this. Like right now, I don't have anybody listening on YouTube, but I have one person listening to me on Clubhouse. And what does that mean to me? I've had 2 people in here, and I appreciate those people. And the outcome that I want to get to and the outcome that I'm after means that, all right, I'm going to make the steps, the clear choices to get me to the place. And once I build not just the rhythm and the habit, now that rhythm and habit, what have I learned from those experiences? That's wisdom. Because wisdom understands. Knowledge is what you're thinking. To me, knowledge is like you have the resource of the bank, but you don't know how to you really don't fully fathom how to understand what the purpose to use it for. So it answers that question. What's this for? Why must I, how am I going to use this? And why must I use this? So then when you ask the question, when it takes place, that says it all. And so the hard-hitting things that I've had to address with even listening to my partner is all the lacks, right? And either I can take from it and be beat up from it, or I can say, you know what? It's my bad. But now that I understand, I'm going to take careful action to change the rhythm for now and forever, no matter what my role is. And to say to someone that and really mean it, you've now just signed a cosmic contract, not just with yourself, but with somebody else. When you say, all right, no matter who it is, I will commit. I will finish through. There are going to be times you can't finish certain things because they weren't meant for you. There are certain people that are not meant to be in your life. And that's the hardest thing for me, even when I face that same question, is who I'm with really the same, but that begs upon the questions of doubt and fear, because what you feel guilt over and shame. And when you stop those crazy thoughts, as I call them, those crazy reflections, it's your insecurity, the little person in you that never learned how to do better, truly, but say, all right, I'm going to steady myself through this situation and let me learn to accept things before I just react to things. This is where I can keep control. Because like the Stoics would say, if you mind what actually is in your control, you are much powerful than you realize. And that means your words that come out of your mouth, your thoughts, you do control those. Your optics and what you believe, those are things that you control, not somebody else. And when you get down to it and you understand, okay, well, this is my life. And the more that I take patience with things and understanding and empathy with things, I am less offended. It goes on to the Stoics, what they will say. I think it's Marcus Aurelius says, you cannot be harmed if you choose not to be. And the best example I can think about that is when I think about Reuben Hurricane Carter, Nelson Mandela, 2 men who were put in prison unjustly, right? And there was a movie called The Hurricane with Denzel Washington, and he takes the character of Reuben Hurricane Carter, and he was accused of murdering several people in a cafe, and he wasn't even there. But because he was a famous boxer and he drove a Cadillac, the witnesses associated him of going in and killing all these people in a cafe. And he literally goes years. I think he went like 30 years in prison. Imagine that, 30 years in prison. And one of the things that he's so known for, he told the warden on day one, he's like, you may put my body here, but my mind is free. When it's time, I'm going to leave with clear conscience. I think I'm paraphrasing the words that he was saying, but the point is he was like, you may have my body in this prison, but you will not take my mind. You will not take what I believe in, and especially the truth. And then later in the movie, this boy this boy who finds out his story because he wrote a book, and then finds a legal group of young attorneys, and they find that all the evidence that was fabricating against him was false. But think about going through all that time. Once you said, you cannot keep my mind, you will not make an impression. Once you make a solid decision, no one can change it but you and your allowances. And I think that's the most powerful lesson that anyone can learn. I have a lot of work to do, a lot. I have not even so much even making up, but what I understand is that I can take time to realize what the tools and resources I bring to the table to build with anyone. And that's where I got to thank my partner, um, or the person I care about, is because they raise these questions to me. What are you bringing to the table? Not that you're not a nice man, not that you're not a beautiful man, not that you're, but seriously, what are you going to bring to the table? Because if you're not going to bring something of value other than vanity, then I cannot spend time with you. And if you do not have the character, if you do not have the wisdom to apply, maybe you've been through hard things, maybe you suffered tremendous things in your life, but if you're not going to put the work in, then don't waste space with me. And that's real. A lot of us say that in passive. We say it to people like, don't waste my time, man. Don't waste, don't put yourself where you don't belong. Be here, be now, be one. Be one with who you are and contribute. And that woke me up with a lot of other things. But instead of saying what I'm going to do from here on out, the one thing that I will do, that I keep this contract I keep with myself, I promise myself, I will keep my word, because that's all you really got. I will keep my word and my commitments, and I will do the best no matter what kind of work it takes. If it takes a lot of small steps to get me to the confidence and build me that way, and my identity's strong and my identity's, fortified, because like, to me, the rock solid people, they're not easily swayed with emotions. They're not easily like angered, but they do get angry. Underneath it all, you can be upset. And that's one thing about Stoicism, that you can learn to grow, to be mature. You can grow in maturity. You can understand maturity. So, as I get ready to wrap up the show, what I would like you to take away with is, make that contract and that commitment with yourself to build confidence every single day. That means keeping your word, taking care of yourself, taking care of everything, take care of your health, train yourself, give yourself reason to grow. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you're not growing. You are. Maybe it might be late. Who knows? But it's when you decide, not when someone else, and not just for someone else. I have all the reasons to change my path, but it has to come down to, it's my decision. And if I don't do this, then I can blame or cry to nobody. So that's really the premise. Make it happen, but you know what? Make it consistent. Don't be afraid to take small steps. Keep your focus narrowed and your distractions minimal. Don't let the illusions in your mind ruin your time, ruin your effort, ruin your work. Anyhow, that's all the time that I have for today. And I just want to say thank you so much for all subscribers and people who listen. I will be publishing this out on my podcast. If you want to reach out, have some discussions, or follow the show, check me out on My Stoic Circus on YouTube. And the website should be published fairly soon here. But thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Y'all take care.